The Jewish Channel's Week in Review. Israel looks at conflicts just outside its borders and within them, looking at Jewish heritage from a different perspective, why these people are protesting the Brooklyn DA, and more of the Jewish news that's changing your world right now in this episode of the Week in Review. Hello and welcome to the Jewish Channel's Week in Review. I'm Stephen I. Weiss. Israel has attacked another arms site in Syria this month, according to a report in the New York Times. If true, this would reportedly be the fourth time that Israel has attacked targets in Syria by air in recent months. These developments continue to create concerns about whether or perhaps how Israel may come to be ensnared in the civil war taking place to Israel's north. The most recent attack being ascribed to Israel occurred on July 5th, with an air attack destroying what were reportedly advanced anti-ship cruise missiles sold to the government of Syrian President Bashar Assad by Russia. Israel has previously said it would target arms shipments headed to Hezbollah, which is fighting alongside Assad. It's possible that this latest attack would be an expansion of the idea of the kinds of targets that Israel is willing to target, to include not just shipments on their way to Hezbollah, but also weapons caches that could potentially end up in the hands of Hezbollah. Israel has not made any statement to suggest it did or did not engage in these air attacks on weapons shipments and storehouses. But Israel increasingly is a subject of concern regarding civil strife not only outside its borders, but within them as well. Religious divisions have been creating new problems on a regular basis in the Jewish state, and the latest statements from a major Sephardic ultra-Orthodox leader won't do anything to calm those tensions. Modern Orthodox Zionist political leaders are sworn enemies of the Jewish people, according to that rabbi, Shalom Cohen. The comments reference the biblical nation of Amalek, which in Jewish tradition is considered so great an enemy of the Jewish people that it must be destroyed completely. Cohen referred to the modern Orthodox Zionist political leadership as Amalek, saying, "The throne of God is not complete as long as there are Amalek. When will the throne of God be complete? When there are no more." Cohen went on to specifically cite a major rabbinic leader in the modern Orthodox world, saying he was referring to, quote, Rabbi Chaim Druckman and all the Amalek. Cohen later clarified his remarks to suggest a more specific group he felt should be wiped out, declaring he meant to specify, quote, the leaders and supporters of Habayit HaYehudi party who have sanctified war in a world of Torah and yeshiva. The Habayit HaYehudi, or Jewish Home Party, is the party that gained the third most votes in this year's election and is headed by the Minister of Religious Services, Naftali Bennett. Moving on to an episode of Jewish strife here in the United States, the office of Brooklyn District Attorney Charles Hines has been mired in controversy regarding its handling of cases of sexual abuse in the ultra-Orthodox Jewish community. A recent case is generating protest, and Meredith Gansman was there.
Last Thursday, protesters marched outside of Brooklyn District Attorney Charles Hines' office, calling for justice for Kellner. Kellner is Sam Kellner, a Hasidic resident of the largely ultra-Orthodox Borough Park neighborhood. 5 years ago, Kellner reported to the Brooklyn DA's office that his son and others were victims of sexual abuse by Borough Park cantor Baruch Leibovitz. But now he finds himself awaiting trial. Abuse survivor and activist Chaim Levin organized the protest to support Kellner.
What Kellner did is something that my parents should have done when I was 14, and I told them that I was sexually abused by my cousin for 4 years, but they didn't. On the advice of the rabbi, of my principal, they stayed silent because that's what the community was doing.
Leibovitz was convicted in 2010 on 8 counts of molesting a Borough Park teenager, and was sentenced to 10 2/3 to 32 years in prison. In 2011, however, the conviction was thrown out because of the prosecution's failure to turn over a detective's notes to the defense in a timely manner. One of the alleged victims, a key witness in the case, recanted his testimony, saying he was paid by Kellner to testify. But Kellner supporters like Mark Mayer Appel, president of the Voice of Justice, a social justice not-for-profit, believes that the recanting was a result of bribery.
This young victim went to the grand jury and said that he was abused. He told the entire community of Brooklyn that he was abused. He told me he was abused, and then he recanted the story. Because probably, probably being paid by Leibovitz's family or some other people.
While no new trial date has been set for Leibovitz, 28 months ago, Sam Kellner was indicted, charged with paying one of the alleged victims to testify against Leibovitz and with attempting to extort money from the Leibovitz family. Kellner was supposed to go to court last Monday, but prosecutors said the Brooklyn DA was not ready to proceed with the trial and asked for an extension. Now he's set to return to court at the end of the month, and before that, protesters have mobilized, outraged against the charges. For more from the protest for Sam Kellner, tune into the full broadcast version of the Week in Review.
Thank you, Meredith. A novel approach to exploring Jewish history in documentary form is the subject of this next story from Christian Needon.
A new film from Israel shows a very personalized image of the country's history. Israel, a Home Movie, was conceived by filmmaker Arik Bernstein, who sat down with TJC to discuss his film on the eve of its opening at Film Forum in Manhattan, and he noted the historic value of viewing history through the work of home movie makers.
You really have an entire alternative archive, an alternative way of looking at history through personal eyes. And it also fits in with actually a lot of historical work being done in the last 10 or 20 years, which look at history from a more personal point of view. And you see things in the film and in the footage that you would never see in an official news cameraman, whether it's television or whether it's for some kind of institution or whatever.
Bernstein had plenty of personal experience with the medium.
I grew up in home movies on 8mm. My mother got an 8mm camera in 1937 for her wedding. My parents are American, in Philadelphia. So she started shooting then, late 30s, and up until mid-70s.
Bernstein said that editing this project meant dealing with images that were subject to the family interests of their creators.
When somebody shoots home movies and they shoot an historical event, they will usually shoot their son in this historical event, or their daughter, or their husband or wife, because that's why they're there. If they show the, Declaration of the State of Israel, and we have footage of that, the guy who shot it shot his son on a bus waving, because that's what he's interested in.
To see more from Israel, a Home Movie, please tune into the full broadcast edition of the Week in Review.
Thank you, Christian. Finally, while many Israeli novelists have been celebrated with English translations of their works in recent years, it's quite rare to find an Israeli actually writing a novel in English. But that was the task undertaken by Shani Boyan Joe with The People Are Forever Are Not Afraid, now out in paperback. Rebecca Honig-Friedman recently sat down with her for an interview, and here are the highlights.
The book is about 3 young Israeli women and their military experiences and before and after. That's something that in English literature, we really don't have those stories. Is that why you wanted to write about this specific subject?
I would actually say that it was a type of lack that I was seeing in English literature. And the lack was that if we look at the narratives that we have, and particularly, by male authors, and there's that book called The Road, I think it's by Cormac McCarthy. It was describing this type of reality where, violence was going to be inevitable. This is an imaginary situation. Violence was going to be inevitable. And then the son and the father, they carry on the road. But the mother, because, in addition to being a full human being, a full political participant in this new reality, she's also the mother and the wife. She just can't handle it. She commits suicide, and I think, the first pages of the
Spoiler
book,
alert.
and spoiler alert. And the problem with that narrative is that for people of my generation, and in particular for females of my generation, it doesn't hold the full story. And that's the danger of sort of the single story, like that Shimon Ngozi speaks about, that it doesn't hold the full story because, when a female Palestinian suicide bomber, let's take it right into the heart of the Palestinian conflict, decides to be that, but by her choosing to use the body, immediately she makes, the necessity of female soldiers,
She makes it necessary for there to be females.
Exactly, because a male can't search her now. So
Right.
now, forever on, from the first time that happened, you know, and I just don't think that it's true. I just don't think that these narratives where women are always escaping from violence, or that the only choice allotted to them is suicide, or that they're always at the periphery, I just don't think that describes their reality today. And I think that when we feed women and girls, young women and girls, this reality in today's political climate, I think that's dangerous.
So you started writing it at Harvard. What was it like for you coming in? Because you're a little bit older, you have the whole Army experience under your belt. Was it hard for you to relate to these 18-year-old American kids?
Well, you know, it was extremely difficult. It was, I think, one of the most jarring things I ever had to do. You have to understand that in the Israeli army, they don't teach you how to be like a whole entire soldier who's good at everything. It wouldn't make sense for them to do that, right? So in my particular case, not that it's very interesting, because I'm sure that a girl that was stationed in checkpoints could say the same thing, and a girl that was stationed looking at a monitor, you know, in the Egyptian border could say the same thing. But in my case, you know, I had spent the last 2 years basically, you know, guarding and looking at a closed gate, and, you know, and or all of the human interaction that I've had were really about trying to understand a person through how they are able to, you know, perform on the shooting range, and all of the, you know, reading that I got to do of people, and really all of my adult life up to that point, all of my experiences as an adult human being were facilitated through the language of teaching another human being and being with another human being while they were learning how to use a weapon. Now, of course, you come to Harvard doing freshman orientation, and there was just no way I could ever explain myself, and it was difficult.
A lot of the characters in the book are pretty ambivalent about serving, either serving in general or about specific aspects of what they have to do. Do you think that's a pretty widespread feeling among young Israelis?
I am one person, and I obviously can't speak. You know, I'm not the voice of my generation, or even the voice of a generation. So I obviously cannot speak for all Israelis, and I would never presume to do so. I grew up in a town where almost everyone served, and of course people were sometimes bitter about it, bitter about where they were posted. But if you think back on your high school and your college experience, please try to name one friend who was not bitter about a class she took or a dorm she was assigned to and was complaining about it bitterly. Please try and find one friend who at one point did not feel that way, you know. So, and again, if we portray the narrative of just like we're happy all that, that's just not real people, you know. Don't you want Israelis to be human beings?
Thank you, Rebecca. You can see the full interview with Shani Boyan-Joe in the interviews category under TJC Original Series on the Jewish Channel On Demand on cable. That's all for this week. From all of us here at the Jewish Channel, be well. The Jewish Channel is available on cable. Time Warner Cable Channel 528, IO Optimum Channel 505, RCN Channel 268, Bright House Channel 330, Verizon Fios Channel 900, Cox Cable Channel 1, Frontier Communications, and on Comcast in the on-demand menu under Premium Channels. For more information, visit tjctv.com.